guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to turn myself into a witch. Why? Because I don't have a reason why. I just want to turn myself into a witch. I'm going to try and make a crazy nose and maybe put some marks on my face. I don't know what they call, like moles or warts or whatever, and maybe extend my chin out a little bit. And then we'll do a cool painting job and, you know, see how it looks. Oh, make my brow bone, my cheekbones look a little crazy. Just really go all out and maybe give her some wrinkles. I don't know. We'll see. We'll feel it out. But the main goal today is to work with Scar Wax, my least favorite tool. But anyway, I'm going to get set up, and like always, it's going to be a voiceover. So let's get to it. Alright, so I'm starting with some liquid latex as my adhesive because I read in a book somewhere that you can do this. I don't think I'll be using this technique again because after I was done with my makeup and stuff, the liquid latex from the Scar Wax somehow got wet again, so it was just kind of like not dried and I did not like it. So I'm not going to use this technique again, but it was nice to try out. So I'm applying it on my cheekbones, my nose, my chin, and above my eyebrows because that's where I plan to put the Scar Wax because I want to really make it look crazy and stuff and build up those dimensions and make them look exaggerated like a traditional Halloween witch. So once it was dried, I started on the cheekbones and I kind of rolled out the Scar Wax into like a worm kind of like thing, and then I applied it to my face. And then I used a spatula to squish down the edges to make sure it stayed on. You have to make sure to put Vaseline on your spatula and on your fingers and stuff so that way the Scar Wax doesn't stick to your tools, because otherwise it's just going to come up. So then I go on with my finger to kind of smoothen out the edges, and I didn't like how the cheek was going, so I thought it needed to go a little more pointed towards my nose, so I just kind of moved it and reapplied it with the spatula, smoothing out the edges, and then going back in with the Vaseline to ensure that it looks smooth. You have to make sure to work with a very generous amount of Vaseline because you want this to mold. It's kind of like using like clay and then use that water to make the clay more moldable. So this is kind of like a little analogy to think of when using Scar Wax. I'm making sure to pull the bottom of the Scar Wax up and kind of flattening it as much as possible to make the corner of my cheek more sharp and make it more exaggerated and kind of like fantasy-like. Once I was happy with that, it was time to add the next part. I was working on the eye socket area, I guess we'll call it. I was working at it in kind of like sections because I didn't want to just put like a whole bunch of Scar Wax on my face and then just try and mold that. So I figured it'd be easier to work in small sections to make sure it goes all the way around my eyes. And I'm just using the spatula to smooth out the edges and going in with my finger to just make it look even smoother and mold it into the shape that I want. I really want this to look exaggerated and crazy, like a traditional witch mask like you see during Halloween, just like those silly green ones and stuff. And I had to go back and touch up some of the prosthetic from before because the Scar Wax was moving around. It's one of the cons of using Scar Wax that it never dries, so if your actor or your model move their face a lot, it probably is going to move with them. So then I'm adding the last bit apart to this eye socket piece, and it's kind of like the last part of the brow bone. So I added a nice thin amount of the Scar Wax, and then I'm flattening out the spatula, and then I'm going to shape it in with my finger and the Vaseline. I was pretty much happy with how this looked, so I just completed the same process for the other side. Now moving on to the nose, and the witch's nose is kind of like pointy, but I didn't want to make it look too big and crazy, so I just added like a small ball to my tip of my nose, and then I just kind of used that to shape it. And I was using the spatula to do this, and I realized that it was like kind of looking a little too buttony. I was like, it needs to be pointy. And it was starting to point up, and I feel like a witch's nose needs to point down. It was giving more like nose job or like Pinocchio, so I just kind of used the spatula to flatten it out. But then I felt like that looked a little too much like a bird, so I used the spatula to kind of like round out the end and make it a little more thicker than it was thin, and I think that worked out pretty well. And then I just go in with the Vaseline to like with my fingers and smooth it out as much as possible. And I felt like that was kind of giving the witch look that I wanted. So now I'm moving on to the chin, and I kind of rolled out 2 balls of the Scar Wax, and then I applied this separately because I wanted her to have like a super round butt chin. Look like it would look right if I made them 2 separate pieces and then fused them together. I will say it was kind of hard to apply the Scar Wax on my chin because, like, I guess the chin is really round, so you have to get around all those edges, and then like your chin moves sometimes, so like the prosthetic is coming up. I will say by the time I was done painting, the chin piece was already ready to come off. I felt like my chin was starting to lose like that butt shape, so I kind of just start using my fingers to kind of form it, and it's like me fighting for my life trying to get this thing to stay on because Scar Wax is not friendly. So I kind of use the spatula to cut that butt into the chin, and then I go with my fingers to make it mold even more. And I felt like that worked out a lot better. And I kind of just try and push it, all the edges, as close as possible to my face to keep it on, but I don't think using Scar Wax on your chin is a good idea. Or on the eye socket, like where you blink and stuff. Just don't put it where your face is gonna move. I'm just saying. This is me adding some moles because I felt like she needed some like moles to her face because I thought she looked too pretty, you know, it just looked too gorgeous. Just kidding. But yeah, the one on my nose did not stay on. It fell off like during the painting process because I didn't even prep for them. I just kind of just threw them on there. So I was like, I feel like we need it. So yeah. So I mixed up this green from the Nye Bruise palette, and then I used some of the green and the blue. And then when I went to try to mix this color again, I made it way too dark. So my witch came out the same color as my wall. I don't think I will be doing that again. The next time I paint this, I talked to Craig and he said that I should paint her yellow and then contour with the green and then go in with more yellow. So I will definitely be doing that next time. And I probably will go further down. I just wanted to paint like the neck enough so you could just get the general idea. I wasn't doing this for a shoot or anything like that. I was just practicing my Scar Wax techniques. I also am not a fan of Scar Wax painting on top of Scar Wax, but I did talk to Craig as well, and he said that I should try and cover the Scar Wax in a layer of liquid latex after I'm done, and that should give it some sort of like skin layer and make it a little more friendly to paint. Yeah, so this is where that super dark green mixture comes in. See, the chin mold just came off, so I just gave up. It's like, okay, whatever, paint it over the whole. But yeah, this green is just so dark, and I go in and I highlight it and I contour it later, and I think that helps, but definitely going in with a brighter neon color green would be way better. I'm trying to get every nook and cranny, but like the Scar Wax kept sticking to my brush, and then I didn't want it to move, so I just like tried. So you can't like wipe it, you have to pat it. I think maybe using a sponge might be a better idea. I'll try and use a sponge next time and see, but I just really don't like Scar Wax. I think it looks cool. Like, it's starting to look creepy. Like, I could definitely see this as like some kind of creepy goblin or imp or monster or something like that, but I just don't like Scar Wax. I mean, it is cool though. I like how you can get prosthetics to look seamlessly coming off of your face. It's just the texture. I just don't like the texture. I was trying to paint the bottom of my nose, and I started to get some of the prosthetic off on accident because it was sticking to my brush, and I was like, oh my god, this is just a nightmare. It's a nightmare. But you know, I have to practice everything to broaden my horizons as a special effect makeup artist. So there has to be trial and errors, you know? I gotta I gotta walk before I can run. I gotta walk before I can run. So I just added some of the Clown White to this dark green mixture that I had, and I applied it on all the places that need to highlight, mostly in the center. And I added it underneath my eyes to make it a little more brighter. And then I go in with a different brush that's really fluffy, and I use that to blend it out and pull down the edges and stuff. And I think that helped. I was starting to get happy because I was like, oh my gosh, it's coming together. It's starting to look like a witch. It isn't the right color green, but it is a green and she has a witch nose and the mold and stuff. So I was getting happy. And I just wanted to cover up any of the places that kind of looked a little splotchy as well. I'm going in with just dark blue. I'm using that blue from the palette because she's just so dark and it needs some kind of shadowing. And so I put that in the middle of the butt chin. I put it on the eye sockets all around it, basically. And then I think I put some on the nose. And then, of course, I put it around the mole just to give it some dimension and shadowing. And I think that this helped so much. It made it look less flat and it gave it some more dimension and it made those little like cheekbones, eye socket things look like they're popping out of my head and the mole looks a little more bigger. Like I just think it helped overall and just gave it more dimension. It's definitely given like witch or like goblin thing. Like if my ears were pointy, it definitely would be giving goblin. And I think it's just because of the color. I think if it was neon green, it would totally be giving that traditional witch vibe. I mean, it still does. It's just a little more on the darker side. So maybe less happy traditional and more scary traditional. More of like a Goosebumps kind of like character or something. So I'm powdering it to kind of get rid of that shininess and also to kind of make me feel a little better because the texture was just so greasy. I just felt really greasy. Like the scar wax isn't dry and then I used cream paint to paint it. So my face was like, it just felt really caked up on. And so I was like, I'm just gonna hit it with some powder to make it look a little dry. So yeah, this is my traditional witch mask with the scar wax. Thank you guys so much for watching.